Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fanboy Planet podcast. And I got to frame myself just right. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to be big. Say, of course, you can see who the guests are. Tonight, it is No Time to Pie. Welcome to the Fanboy Planet podcast. I am editor-in-chief Derek McCaw. And, of course, with me, as always, is podcast producer.
Hi, I'm Rick Brett Snyder.
And our special guest tonight, because, of course, we've been waiting. I think literally this podcast has been like a year in the making.
More than that.
A couple of years.
I would say a couple of years in the making.
Well, I think a year ago we said, no, we're going to, we saw the trailer. It's okay. Or 2 years ago. You're right. Damn it. It's been 2 years. So anyway,
2 years.
Yourself.
So my name's Pizarro, Sal Pizarro,
Yeah.
With the Mercury News. And I'm our resident James Bond fan and expert, I think. Although, I think both of you can give me a good run for my money. And I'm thrilled to be back here.
No, I defer. I feel like in the last few months I've been humbled by meeting a lot of people that are much more laser focused on things. Once I've met Douglas Woke, who has read every Marvel comic ever written up to 2017. I don't have that kind of time.
That's a commitment.
And you've watched all the Bond films at least once. At least twice, and you only watch twice, or 3 times, and it goes forward. Maybe if we do if there's a reason to do a Rocky Horror Picture Show episode, I might be able to reclaim some kind of dignity, which is weird. We'll be wearing fishnets and a garter, but that's all right. Anyway,
it's not a competition. Together, we are an unbeatable force of information about James Bond.
That's right,
and that's all right. Yes. So before we get into that, of course, I do want to say that if you are watching this live, you can, please type in comments and we will see them and may display them. And if you are watching this after the fact, as there were some comments last week from, I'm going to say it, Michel Saman, in which he was asking, is this live? And he was commenting along as he was watching it. Yeah, eventually we see it, and I'll try to respond to that. But if you're here now, do. And if you want to comment after the fact, you can write in. If you've got any questions, comments, compliments, commentary, criticism, write into editor@fanboyplanet.com. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and follow us on Facebook, as you may be watching this on Facebook now, at Fanboy Planet. And so, let's get into it. Sal, it was about 2 months ago. Oh, go ahead, Rick. Yes.
I think we need, because it's been a while since the films come out, we need to establish our status on spoilers. And I have a proposition, and that is that we do at least 20 minutes. I don't like being
propositioned by you. No.
I have a proposition that we do 15, 20 minutes spoiler free, and then we open it up to all the spoilers we really want to talk about.
Oh, no, I'm fine with that. However, I would say not only has it been out for a while, and by the way, if you're wondering what it is, we are talking about James Bond, No Time to Die. But that not only has been out, has been out on home video for a week. So at least digital streaming.
Right.
So that's why it is kind of overdue, because about 2 months ago, if that's how long it was when it first reached the theater, a week and a half ago, 6 weeks ago.
6 weeks. Yeah.
Because we're at a 45-day window now. That's what's going on, right?
Well, they had a 31-day window for this movie.
Okay, but you and I, Sal, met in Hollywood in a clandestine little hideaway known as the Scum and Villainy Cantina.
That's right.
And it was for Sal's birthday. And I mean, that's not why I was there. It was just happened to be, that's why Sal was
You were there because you live there.
I know. But we met at the Scum and Villainy Cantina, and you had already seen a press screening of it. And so we were talking a little bit about it, very spoiler free. And then it had turned out that when you were down there 2 days after we met was when Daniel Craig did he get his star?
He got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
And got to put his handprints and footprints at the Grauman's Chinese, or the Man's Chinese. I'm old school. I will always say Grauman's. I know I'm wrong. It's actually
I don't even think it's Man's anymore. I think it's like the TCL Chinese.
They call it the TCL Chinese Theater. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and so as it turned out, I was down there for another event and watched all the foofara afterwards and was texting. It was like a spy movie. As I was texting you from the parking garage, like, oh my God, is it clear? Can I get through? Is there do we have to? We're running interference, and Sal was knocked unconscious by the stampede.
It
But
was.
you actually got to see this event, right?
We got to see the event. My kids got to be there. My son Alex is 10 years old, so he was right up against sort of like the barrier for the public. And he swears Daniel Craig looked him right in the face, and I believe it because I had the only two children there, and I think that they were pretty noticeable. Photographers were taking the pictures of him, but I didn't notice anything online the next day. But it was a really festive thing. Daniel Craig was wearing this really nice blue suit. He'd just come from the Jimmy Kimmel show, and it really laid to waste any of those thoughts that he hates being James Bond. And a lot of that came out after Spectre when he said the "I'll slip my wrist" comment and stuff. He was really enjoying himself in this role. So it was great to see that, great to be part of it. The Rami Malek, who plays the villain in No Time to Die, he was there and said very nice things. And I found out later that George Lazenby was there. And there's two sides where the public can be, and we were on the opposite side of George. So if we just chosen differently, I could have been standing next to James Bond himself.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question. I mean, I hate to say it because I do love him on Her Majesty's Service, but was he standing with the public on the side of the gate you were on? Or...
He was standing with the public on the other side. He was not inside the gates. I don't believe the folks from Eon knew he was going to be there.
Which is tragic. I don't think it's a spoiler to say, especially at this point, that No Time to Die echoes a lot from On Her Majesty's Secret Service and owes so much to that, as well as you and I were joking about You Only Live Twice, and that so it's that is sad. I mean, I would like them to have acknowledged him more. I mean, I know he's around, and just as a side note, you can see, I don't even remember that there was that children's fan film, James Bond parody that we've got on Fanboy Planet. The George Lazenby, actually, that middle school teacher or elementary school teacher just called George Lazenby's agent and said, "Could we get a cameo?" And George Lazenby did like 5 seconds in this kid's movie that has been winning fan film awards all over. So he clearly loves, even as he admits, like sort of bobbled the fame at the time. He loves his place in that legacy, and certainly is about legacy.
Yep, and last year he also had that Becoming Bond sort of documentary / it had a lot of recreations in it, and I finally got to watch that during the pandemic, and it's a fascinating look. It's obviously George's take on things, but if you're a Bond fan, it's really worth watching to sort of see him and talk about it. And he knows he kind of messed it up. I think he was in a very good film. He was not an actor when he got into that movie. I think he was more of an actor when he came out of it, but he acknowledges that he messed up in not keeping that role, and that he just mistimed it. So it's good to see him getting some recognition now, especially with this movie, and a lot of people are talking about the movie that he was in, and I think some of them are probably rediscovering it or discovering it for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we go into the film itself, this is as you were telling me, that this was the second time that you'd had an opportunity to see a Bond up close, right? Way back when, a young callow Sal Pizarro in San Francisco.
No, I missed that opportunity.
Right.
The quick version of that story is A View to a Kill. I live in San Jose, and A View to a Kill was shot on location in San Francisco when I was in middle school. I was not very film savvy at the time. I did not realize we could just go up an hour or so and watch some of these things happening. And so I missed the chance to see Roger Moore. As it turns out, a friend of mine they had an event at Bay Meadows Racetrack. that, again, I was totally unaware of. This friend was there. He got a autograph from Roger Moore to me, not even for himself, to me,
Oh,
knowing I was a
that is
Bond
the
fan,
best friend ever.
and gave it to me. And I was going through some old school stuff recently, and I found it, and I couldn't believe it. And I looked and I said, "No, this was really it. This was Roger." And I didn't remember that it said to Sal, but it did. Um, and I hope he got one for himself too. That's someone I haven't seen since seventh or eighth grade.
Oh,
So,
I was going to say, so let's call about where is that friend now? Sal, who was that?
his name was Kevin Taylor. Uh, but I lost touch with him certainly after high school. So, but I'm really glad that he did that for me. I don't think at the time when he gave it to me, I believed him. So I was probably quite incredulous, and I feel bad for that now. I mean, it's like, wait, you got Roger Moore's autograph? How? And then, later I pieced it all together. So,
There you go.
um,
So you've seen the movie at least twice
me,
because you've seen No Time to Die twice, if
um,
not three times.
I've seen it 5 times actually,
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
but
There you go. That's fandom. I
yeah,
don't have, that we enjoyed it. So, your take. I mean, obviously, because even when you're a diehard fan of a franchise and you say, I've seen it 5 times, there could have been a silent only because I was disgusted by this film. I only saw it 5 times.
um, so my take is that I really like this movie, uh, and that's partly evidenced by the fact that I've seen it 5 times. Usually, that involves me wanting to see it at certain theaters and certain formats, because those go away and all we're left with is video. And but I really liked it. I think it's a great way for Daniel Craig to end his run of movies, and I found it to be just more emotional than I expected it to be, knowing that it was going to be his last film. As a Bond fan, I think a lot of people are going to say it's a divisive movie because of some of the plot points that we'll get into later. But I think if you go into it knowing that it's Daniel Craig's last movie, you can enjoy the ride. And I think as a general movie overall, I think it's incredibly well made. Cary Fukunaga did an incredible job with the direction. It's a beautiful film, cinematography wise. I was worried about the music from Hans Zimmer, and really a lot of Steve Mazzaro, I think, contributed to the score. I thought the music worked so well, with the action, with the quieter scenes, and there's a few just really exciting scenes that I think we'll be able to talk about later. That you could put them up against any sequence in a Bond movie, whether it's Sean Connery, Roger Moore, or Pierce Brosnan, and you'll say, yeah, this is one of the best sequences you're ever going to get in a Bond movie. So, and we have some new faces in this movie that I thought were really well handled, and
Well,
it
yeah,
just
I think we've talked about Bond films in the past. Obviously, I mean that's not the only thing we all have in common, but it certainly was a thing where we've had you talk about it, like when this film was first announced and the trailer first came out. But I think after seeing it, and again, not really a spoiler, Ana de Armas's character is like way back when Halle Berry was it Jazz? Was that the name of her character? Um,
Jinx.
Jinx.
That's right.
Yeah, that you could easily see. I mean, my frustration with the broccoli family, or the broccoli, I believe they like to say it. The broccoli family is,
I think they say broccoli.
do they?
Or
Okay,
yeah,
that they do not seem interested in building out a universe franchise. And not that I'm a big fan necessarily of everything has to be a universe, but in this case, you could have had Jinx have a solo film. You could
Right.
have Ana de Armas's character be a solo film, because obviously she's also very much a rising star. But I thought that sequence was just beautiful from start to finish. I mean, I just loved that whole piece. But and then I apologize that I am blanking on the other 007. I mean, but she was strong.
Lashana Lynch. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lashana
Lashana
Lynch.
Lynch. Thank you. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think they tried branching out a little 30 years ago with James Bond Jr., the animated
books.
series. There's an anime.
Oh,
No, not the Young Bond books, which are very good.
Yeah.
But there was an animated series in
Right.
1991
Yes,
and 92.
one of my good friends from childhood is a voice on that. Yes.
And I don't think they found that to be a good experience.
Well, but it was also not a good series.
No, it wasn't. And I think I think what they came away from with that was, we know how to do this one thing. Let's just keep doing this one thing that we do well and not try to do these other things. Now, that's not talking about, because there's obviously right now a lot of Bond comics out. There's more Bond novels coming out, and there's going to be another Bond game coming out in the next year or two. But that's not Eon Productions. That's not the Broccoli family. Now,
who's writing the novel?
Anthony Horowitz is writing a third novel that's going to be out in May.
Okay.
And then there was just announced a woman who I feel badly that I'm blanking on her name, was just announced. She's going to be writing a trio of novels about other 00 agents. And the premise is James Bond is missing, and these other 00 agents have to do something that may or may not be related to his disappearance. So that's sort of expanding the universe in that direction. But that's through Ian Fleming Publications, which handles all the book rights. And they're the ones who've been pushing the comics and pushing a lot of the other
that's what we say. In written form, they have an understanding that there's a world that they can build out and flesh out. And it sounds like this trilogy is not that far off, like from what the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe is doing with Swords Across Eternity. Like, we've got all these other characters. We'll tie it all up eventually in search of another. But that'll get people in.
I mean, comics-wise, they had a Felix Leiter series that I thought was very good.
Did you read? Did you read the James Bond Agent of Spectre?
I have not. I don't know if that's in collected form yet, but I was waiting for it. Our mutual friend Neil at Hijinks was not carrying that, and by the time I realized it, I didn't want him to have to order them all for me. He says, "I'll just wait for a collection."
Okay.
So
it's really good.
Oh, I'm looking forward to reading that then.
Yeah.
Because I've really enjoyed it. The approach the comics have taken has been to modernize Bond, but not in a really garish way. The
storytelling is right up there with the hard case comics that are coming out, that are very mature, they respect the intelligence of the reader, and it's been missing in a lot of comics in adaptations of that sort for a while.
But Derek, what do you think of the movie?
This is one of those cases, because I think we've been talking long enough. I can say, maybe get a little spoiler, is for years I have said that one of the problems with American culture is we don't tell the true hero arc, right? It's always based on, and certainly this entire podcast, why the form that we've gathered around to be common point of interest, comics are by nature serial and constantly going on, but that's not what happens in actual myths and legends and true stories. That they have to have an end, and that ending was spoiled for me by.
Wasn't me.
No, it actually was not you, and no, it was some guy that was an online commentator who was ticked, just like on Eternals. Not to give this, but a Variety reporter came out of the world premiere of that and tweeted out a surprise from the film, and has apparently been put on notice by Disney. So I'm grateful. But back to the point is that it took me a while to decide which then is good. This becomes a James Bond film. Same reason that I really loved On Her Majesty's Secret Service when I first saw it, which was late in the game. I went through all the Moors. Then I was in college and was like, okay, I'm going to rent this one and finally watch this one. And that it's a film. It's not just a movie. This is one it's going to stick to your ribs. You finish it. But I also felt it was kind of like a be careful what I wish for, because my gut reaction was to be upset at the way this film ended, because that's not the James Bond that I want. But they gave me the one that I've said that I've wanted for forever. That it echoed so heavily others, which is like what happened in the last one that Pierce Brosnan was in, and I lose track of what these many titles with die in them. I know
everybody has to do a die or a kill.
The Die Hard movie was fun.
Yeah, I thought that Roger Moore was a little out of place in Die Hard too,
yeah.
But it was there. So there were things that I just have, like I said, that whole sequence in Cuba with Spectre, even though there's a silliness to, like, that, it was almost like they were almost willing to embrace the goofiness.
Oh, that is such a Roger Moore scene.
Yeah, but even the plot, like, you're going to go to a birthday party for Blofeld, and all of Spectre is gathered there. And by the way, total understanding of why they could not release this until it felt like the pandemic was almost over, when the great plot is to spread a virus across the world that targets specific people. I was like, okay, yeah, that one would not have flown.
Somebody might have learned something from that, you know?
I don't think so. I'm not. That has nothing to do with any humanity I seem to be familiar with right now. So.
That part for me, and in fact, it wasn't done for laughs, but it reminded me a lot of Kingsman.
Yeah,
the sequence when all the bad guys were dying off, and that's the part that ruins Kingsman for me. So
yeah, no, I can see it. I mean, Kingsman is a little more tongue in cheek. Like, I can hardly wait for that one.
It's tongue in cheek, and this is tongue pushing through the cheek into the next person's mouth.
But I was okay with that. I felt I was annoyed that Felix Leiter was killed off, because I think, like, Felix always gets.
Are we in spoiler territory now?
We are definitely in spoiler territory.
We're 22 minutes into this podcast, okay. Sal. I think
okay.
Yeah. So but as I said, the echoes, like, I messaged to Sal after I saw it, like, when I saw it, I said, like, it wears you the plot of You Only Live Twice, the book, on its sleeve so much that down to the final fight involves shattering a hand. So Dr. Shatterhand is echoed, but the Island of Poison, and it's like, okay, but the reality is, and I struggle with this as a fan of a franchise, is they aren't trying to they've got you, they've got me, they're trying to get the modern audience in, and they said, like, the ticket sales were a little down because the main audience for a Bond film, sorry Sal, tends to be over 40. Over 40, and that's over 40. And we're a little bit over 40, just a tad.
Yeah.
A guy last night told me 60 is the new 20, so I'm going to go with that. So
how old was he?
16 by that math, as am I, my age. And so, welcome, Rick. Next year you can legally drink, and so be excited. Yeah, raise it up. I know we've all got them. Anyway. But they said that the one reason it did not do as well in the box office as they had hoped it would was because they think that's the audience that has not yet really wanted to go back to the theater. And I don't know if that's true or not. But I mean, that's the goal. They're not making these movies for those of us who are approaching 20. They are making those these movies for people that are in their 20s and are going to go back again and again. So,
that gets to one of my problems with it, because I thought the first 2/3 of the movie were like the perfect tone for a modern audience James Bond movie. I think the movie actually slows down once they get to Blofeld's hideaway, and it's
Saffron's
almost like
hideaway.
pardon me,
yeah.
pardon me, right?
Saffron.
Yes, yeah,
Blofeld stays in prison
yes. Sorry, for a long time.
for a long time.
I was trying to think of Malik's prior character. Anyway, they basically kind of walk. It's like a walking tour of his hideout. With Malik eventually letting the little girl go, but there's a point to that too. But the whole part of that leading up to the big sacrifice at the end, all around faults for me. It just one thing after another. And I will give you if you really want, if we're really going into big spoilers, because we haven't said it yet.
We haven't said it.
And are we going to say it now?
Go say it, Rick.
Okay.
Say it.
So the twist on Bond finding love at last, and then having the villain make it so that the two lovers can't be together, or she will die, and she and her daughter will die, is evil. It's vile. It's evil. And the whole magic of nanites being something you can never get rid of, I just didn't buy, because we can't get rid of it in a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. But I don't know that I'm going to buy that you can't have a project to somehow eradicate the nanites from Bond over the next 5 years or something, and why he just gives up at that point. I didn't buy it. It was just too much of a conveyance where this is the way we were going to end the movie. And
it was going to force a final farewell to the character, and that's what I'm saying. It was ultimately a final sacrifice that he'd never really had to make.
Right.
And so it was going to force that. But I will agree with you. The pacing is off in general. I mean, I walked out. Another initial reaction walking out was, "Geez, there was no time to pee." And and I am tired of films just being this long because they can be. It's like, I get it. You want to feel a little more, artistic, whatever, but there also was something to be said for the economy of storytelling. And I know that a lot of Bond films have had their drags. I love Thunderball, but Thunderball really felt long to me, even watching as a kid.
Thunderball underwater. Well, Dr. No wasn't long. Dr. No's 110 minutes.
Can we do that, please?
But I think I agree with you that this, had a lot of artistic moments in it that maybe it didn't need to have. Some scenes were lengthened that maybe we didn't need to. But I actually found that it did not feel like a 2 hour and 43-minute movie. I felt like it went by very quickly.
And you did not have a large Coke Zero before.
Well, that's it, because the first time I saw it was a critic screening, and they don't have, there's no concessions. So I hadn't had anything to drink or eat, and I went through the whole thing fine, straight through. That's happened 2 times when I've seen it. 3 other times I've had to use facilities in the theater, but I will blame 2 of those times on my son, who had to go. So
all right,
I went with
I think we need to get Hugh to invent some kind of device to allow this to go, much smoother and so.
Oh, Amazon's already invented it. It's a Snapple bottle. It's
the trucker's friend.
Oh, now
straps to your leg with a tube.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
right.
So
it's a North Dallas 40.
I entirely respect your opinion on the end and how that worked, because it was a reverse engineered. A lot of this movie, I think, is reverse engineered. They had to get to the point where Bond dies and has to die. So how do we get him here? How do we get this to happen? And this is true not just of many Bond movies, many of our modern pop culture movies, the Marvel Universe. These things happen where they have plot points they need to get to, and they figure out, how do we get our characters here? And it doesn't always make sense. and I think in this case, some people pointed out, well, why does Nomi, the other 007, why does she leave the island? And I think if they had injured her in some way and Madeline has to get her off the island,
Yeah,
that works for me. Why doesn't Bond just go someplace else on this giant island that isn't getting, why doesn't he go farther down?
right.
And I'll say, after multiple viewings, and you never want to have to explain a movie after multiple viewings, but he's not doing well at the end. He's been shot 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So his chances of living, even if the missiles didn't get him, were not good to begin with. He's been shot in the back. That he's walking around is stunning.
I think this is a chance to now to kind of move forward to what would it be, what are they going to do moving forward? Because I think these Daniel Craig films absolutely were their own little Bond universe and timeline, even though there are clearly references to other things, which is why I was okay with it. But it's why, because there's a painting of Bernard Lee as M.
It's actually Robert Brown.
Okay.
5 times. 5 times. Okay. It's Robert Brown.
Okay.
From Octopussy and The View to a Kill and the Dalton movies.
Okay. So,
and there's also Judi Dench. But yes, there's clearly references to previous films.
To earlier M's, but I didn't mind that they were borrowing so heavily from You Only Live Twice when You Only Live Twice had not happened to this Bond. And, I think of it that way. And certainly as we are used to multiverses, is every film producer in the world now wants to introduce us to multiverses. And maybe we'll talk about that in a moment or two. But
yeah,
where do they go forward? Because clearly it is gonna start over. It's going to be James Bond. I'm with Daniel Craig 100% that they need to create new characters like Nomi, and that's that should be where a franchise is, rather than playing it. Not that I have any problem with what they've done with Doctor Who, but to say, let's go something different. James Bond is a certain kind of thing, and I think one of my frustrations with the Craig years is trying to they have to change that warhorse into being something he's not, to make those films palatable for a modern audience. Whereas, isn't there something more interesting if Nomi's attitude about who James Bond is right, instead of spending this movie apologizing for it?
So I know I have some thoughts on where the what I'll call the mainline Bond franchise can go, but there's an interesting idea that we were talking about with this timeline, I guess you could call it, and expanding the universe is, what if we catch up with Mathilde in 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
The daughter of James Bond. And that allows us to
story is in that.
Yes. Reintroduce Nomi, use some of these characters like Q again with Ben Whishaw, and not even, almost in like a Trapper John MD kind of way, where they don't make a huge reference to her.
By the way, fans, this may be the only James Bond commentary you hear that compares this to the future to Trapper John MD.
Because
Trapper John
show in the 80s on CBS, which was a spinoff of MASH, which was another television show from the 70s and 80s on CBS.
But they didn't, other than in the pilot episode of Trapper John MD, they did not make multiple MASH references. They didn't have people, guest stars coming in, oh, I remember you from the Korean War. It was its own thing. So I think it'd be great to have a spy movie with Mathilde, and you could give a lot of hints that, she's the daughter of James Bond, but you don't have to, make it so explicit. This is kind of like the Shang-Chi kind of thing with Fu Manchu.
Yeah. As long as it's not like the Curse of the Pink Panther trying to, which by the way was with Roger Moore. See, it all comes together.
Can I give an alternate potential?
Yes.
And mine is based on the way Hollywood works and the way they want to make movie franchises. And that is, you take the long look at it the way Harry Potter did, when you had the kids in the first film and you've got young adults in the last. Now, you don't start with a kid James Bond, but you start with a young adult who's perhaps starting training. and you have an actor who can go 20 years into a franchise and continue those films.
I'm going to say honestly, though, Rick, that's kind of what happened with Daniel Craig.
He was not that young, and he was
No,
a field.
but he's a lot older now. You know, I mean, they already. Yeah. I'm saying they always follow them. So I mean, they've been. Daniel Craig has a good tenure, probably longest. Because when Sal, you'll have it at your fingertips. Casino Royale came out in what year?
2006. So Daniel Craig is the longest serving Bond with 15 years. Now, some of that was caused by the pandemic, but because this movie should have come out last year.
That has a beginning to end story,
right,
without being a young James Bond novel. So
right.
Skyfall, I guess, kind of goes back into the and means that he had to die rather than be sent to a Scottish farm upstate, because they already did that in Skyfall. But what we've said before, like, I would love to see, because Eon chases trends, and I've seen them quoted as saying, like, the worst thing that happened to the James Bond franchise was Austin Powers. To which I'd say, no, then you never went back and out Austin Powers. So do it. Give me the 60s, the Johnny Quest style, the version of Bond that as a kid I thought I was watching. It's like watching He-Man Revelations. The version you thought, if you were watching Masters of the Universe in the 80s and you were a kid, I was sadly not, but if you were a kid, you thought this was great, deathless Shakespearean drama, and that's what this Kevin Smith revival on Netflix has been. And so that's give me that Bond that is as over the top as I thought it was.
Now, I don't think the Broccoli's are going to do this, but what would you think about if they did sort of a Man from U.N.C.L.E. thing, or the Henry Cavill movie I'm talking about, where they actually set it in the 50s or 60s?
No, absolutely, that's what I think they should do. Yeah. Because as I was also saying, is I think that Bond now, as a character, I see so much commentary, including from the people that work on these films, that is apologetic for who this character is. And I get it, because you know what? Yeah, I mean, I do get it. The way Ian Fleming was probably not somebody that if he was walking around today that I would think that's a cool dude. It's that there is something dark and mean and wrong about James Bond, even when he's being good. He's a man of violence. There's no question. So put him back in the 50s and 60s and have that commentary happen there.
I think that could be interesting. It could open up some really cool things to do with gadgets. I mean, kind of Man from U.N.C.L.E. did do that, where the things that would look silly now look cool when you put a little 1960s sheen on them.
And Lopez joins this prehistoric Bond. I think Bond 1 million BC would be fantastic. No Time to Die, Nassau. There, we're right.
No Time to Dinosaur.
Actually, though, I got to say, Lon, that did happen. That was a man called Flintstone.
Yeah.
So that which I can't believe that HBO Max has not been showing that, touting that as their big thing. Of course, I know that it's Warner Brothers. They may not have any idea they own a film called A Man Called Flintstone. So, and now Lon also asked, does anyone remember Jane Bond? And I'm honestly not sure if you're just, because it's Lon, he could just be being funny, or it could be a legit pop culture reference. I don't remember a Jane Bond.
No.
So
he's going to have to tell us. But
there's a 1975 film, Secret Agent Jane Bond is assigned to break up a heroin smuggling ring operating out of Hong Kong.
Oh, it's an adult film. Yes. I should have guessed.
That probably caused a lawsuit.
Former Fanboy Planet podcaster Lon Lopez, lifting up the discourse as usual. And it's weird, I mean, he has small children now, but okay, anyway, it's all right. Like says the guy that wrote a book about Flash Gordon.
Okay, so, but clearly Bond's coming back. It may be a couple of years, and who do we like to come back as Bond now that Craig's done?
Well, that's a good. Yeah, I want to know that question.
I mean,
There are a lot of names batted around.
people keep
I
talking
think,
about Tom Hardy.
yeah,
People keep talking about. I mean, I think it's. I think we have to get the Idris Elba or the Idris elephant out of the way and say it's not going to be Idris Elba because sadly he's too old. He's too old to do 4 movies over 12 years.
Well,
you know who I'd love to see do it. I'm not a big Tom Hardy fan, so that's. I mean, I think he's been good in things, but he kind of bugs me. Henry Golding.
Henry
I would
Golding.
love to see Henry Golding because to me and I guess maybe that's the problem I have is even as I said I want that man of violence. I do want a Bond that can do, jump out of an airplane and off the parachute and unzip and suddenly be in a tuxedo and look completely unruffled, or come out of the scuba, right? Thunderball, doesn't he come out of the water, the scuba suit, and takes that off and he's, um,
Goldfinger, but yes.
Goldfinger. Okay.
He's wearing a lot of scuba suits in Thunderball though, so it's reasonable.
You understand. And one has a bow tie. I don't know why, but I really like Henry Golding, and so this is interesting. It might be an option. Lon asks, "Is James Bond an actual man or a title?" And the thing is, that is the joke, running gag of the 1967 Casino Royale. So it's been done.
It's actually
that's the problem. And
Codeburn theory.
so many people, when it was announced that Nomi was going to be 007, freaked out thinking that. And I was annoyed with that kind of freak out. It's like 007 is the title. It's just the code number.
right.
We've just only known James Bond as it, but we've seen other 00s throughout the series. And
I think they addressed that so well in the movie that he didn't have the number, but he was still James Bond, and he was recognized as being the best player on the field.
And I think
and Lon suggests we could have Casino Battle Royale.
Oh, Hunger Games, James Bond. That be, they could do anything. That's the beauty of it. They can do anything they want right now.
But
they have a chance to reinvent the series in a way that they hadn't. They didn't even realize they had this chance with Casino Royale. I mean, they were looking to reboot and do an origin story before anybody really thought about reboots the way they do now. But man, they could go in so many directions from this point. I mean, I think Henry Golding's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know how he is in action. We've seen him.
Lon, you probably saw Snake Eyes. I'm going to call out for that. He was Snake Eyes. And that was a movie I was very much looking forward to seeing, and then I just never got out of the theater because it was midsummer pandemic. And I've heard it's not much better than any other G.I. Joe film, but I think, again, he's good.
Well, Snake Eyes has the benefit of having that helmet that covers his whole head. So,
but he was a name actor, so
yeah, I know.
I think the film is a lot of him without it.
Okay.
So but so I mean, I think the other thing is they could treat it the way that that Toho Studios treats Godzilla. They have various eras, and this is the mistake. I don't think they've learned from, like, they got some good heat from having Sam Mendes work on a film. They've certainly gotten great heat from having Cary Fukunaga do this one. That what Toho does is they ask a director, well, what's your take? What do you want to do? So, like, all the Godzillas are different. They're not all different, but a director coming in now can say, I want to work with that original version of Godzilla, or I want to work with that sillier late 60s, early 70s one, or the Sheen version, and they're doing the same thing with Ultraman. Not that we'll ever see it in the US, but they're doing Sheen Ultraman, saying it's reborn. It's just, that's it. So let's have a Sheen James Bond.
I don't think that the Broccoli family, and when I say the Broccoli family, it's actually Barbara Broccoli, who is Cubby Broccoli's daughter, her stepbrother Michael G. Wilson, whose dad was the original Batman, Lewis Wilson, in the serials in the 1940s.
Ooh, that's good trivia. I didn't know that.
That was his dad.
I've seen Lewis Wilson.
And now Michael Wilson's son, Greg Wilson, is getting involved in production, and I think we're going to see him as his father's getting older. We're going to see Greg moving up a little bit more. So it's really kind of the Broccoli Wilson family. But I don't think that they are very interested in going in the direction where they would give up a lot of control to a director. That doesn't seem to be something they've done over the past 60 years. They really like to keep all the toys and bring someone in and say, here's the sandbox. Here are your parameters. You can go this far, but no farther, which is why someone like Quentin Tarantino, has been interested in Bond. Spielberg wanted to do a Bond film in the late 70s and was told, nope. So a lot of our big name directors, I think that's been the issue with Christopher Nolan. His name is floated up and down, and I don't see it happening just because I think Christopher Nolan will want to make a Christopher Nolan movie. And I don't think the Broccoli's want that.
And it's the thing is Christopher Nolan now has made essentially two Bond
movies. Tenet was a Bond movie.
Tenet was a Bond movie. And, Lon asks, is the spy genre tapped with franchises like Kingsman and Bourne, both of which are responses to Bond. And to me, the Daniel Craig Bond films have been following the Bourne. It became, especially when you got into Casino Royale and you had that magnificent parkour sequence, that was trying to one up the Bourne franchise. And
both of those franchises have their own tempo to it. Outside of Bond is a template. You drop Bond in a movie, you find a villain, and you find a locale, and you do a movie. And Kingsman and Bourne both have distinctly different attitudes towards how they do their storytelling.
Well, I would say
but they come from the tree of Bond.
Kingsman was in response to Bond. I mean, that's Mark Miller's take on Bond. So when you say, Spielberg wanted to do Bond in the 70s, and because he couldn't, we got Indiana Jones.
Right.
At this point, it's almost like, must there be a Superman? Must there be a James Bond? Is it done? I mean, they'll still try to make a movie, but is it done? And instead, I'd rather see people create something new as a result. I was not a huge fan of Tenet, but I liked Inception well enough, which was kind of Bondy in a lot of places. I certainly like Raiders of the Lost Ark as a result of, you didn't get to do James Bond,
Let's do that.
This is what you did. The culture was enriched by that refusal to play. But the Broccolis don't see that. That's
I mean, but asking must there be a James Bond is almost like asking, sadly, must there be plastic? Because Bond films have been going on. Next year it'll be 60 years. We don't have a pop culture that exists, a modern pop culture that exists without the Bond films. I mean, Lon's question about is the spy genre tapped out? It's like people were asking that in 1967. And, clearly the answer, 45 years later is, well, no, not yet. We're still working on this.
Yeah.
No Time to Die worldwide is the number 2 non-Chinese released film in the world. It's made over $700 million. And it's going to pass. And number 1 is F9. Yes. Yeah. And it's going to pass F9 next week. And it'll be the number 1 Hollywood film in the world this year. So they're not going to stop making these. It did not reach Skyfall levels or Spectre levels at the box office, but we're looking at a depressed box office. I think it's doing a lot better internationally than anybody expected to. The U.S., the North American numbers are not great. It could be the audience skew that you mentioned. It could be COVID issues in some places, closing theaters.
And Marvel took their most James Bond-like character and made him a superhero, Shang-Chi, and that did really well. And then you hit,
And Marvel made a Bond movie this year too, or at least released one this year. They'd already made it with Black Widow.
Yeah, which was good. It was fun. And so I do have to ask that as we can switch to Marvel just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Rick, did you see Eternals?
Yes.
Sal, did you see Eternals?
Not yet. It's on my list. Got to see it with the kids, but
Okay.
I'm okay with spoilers. I've read enough.
Okay. No, it really was the post-credit thing where they
Oh, yeah.
announced James Gunn had announced the casting of an actor for Adam Warlock. That I recall a young, innocent Rick Bretschneider saying, typing a bunch of swears across my Facebook screen. It was horrible. And when someone asked why, and he said, because I think you'd make a better Pip the Troll. And then, so I've been dying to ask Rick, like, I think they cast a better Pip the Troll, but they ran out of special effects budget before they put him on screen. So,
yeah, I had so much fun explaining to my family what that sequence was about. But yeah, I was pleased with it. I mean, yeah, they didn't. You don't need to throw a lot of money at those post-credit sequences, really.
And by the way, Sal, they didn't.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was so clearly like, what? Okay.
Almost.
That was definitely made to make more people scratch their heads than the Thanos reveal. You know.
This is the danger of me having watched No Time to Die 5 times. My daughter Mia, who is in a big Marvel phase right now, reminds me every week, we haven't seen Eternals yet, and you're going to see No Time to Die again. Like, yeah.
Well, I am going to agree with Lon. I do think that and I'm sorry that I'm not remembering the actor's name, but as my darling wife, looked at a photo of him and went, "Oh, he's had a glow up." So, he's now like close to 30 and good looking.
Yeah, he
always was.
He's one of the kids from oh God, it was that movie about the labyrinth.
The Maze Runner. He was in the Maze Runner, and
right.
He was in long ago, Son of Rambo was his film debut. So when he was like 11. So yeah, and he was almost Pennywise. And that was another one where when Cary Fukunaga was going to be the director of It, that's who he had cast as Pennywise, and then that fell apart and he left. So interesting actor there. And he is Adam Warlock in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and not and not Pip the Troll.
Will Poulter.
Will Poulter, yeah. He's a good actor.
Yeah.
I think I'm seeing him I think he's in Dope Sick.
Yes, he is in Dope Sick, yeah.
So, yeah, we're watching that right now. So, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So, but the other thing is this week was released the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer.
Oh, which we did watch that.
Reversed. I don't think it's a spoiler when I say, like, I have this theory after all the fan speculation that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in it. And Andrew Garfield's giving more interviews saying he's not in Spider-Man No Way Home than he's given interviews on any other project, including Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
What's his budget for that tour?
And I think the thing is, I think he's right. He didn't shoot any new scenes for it. I don't think Tobey Maguire shot any new scenes for it. I think the Sinister Six are going to be just reinserted into their timelines, and they're going to show them.
They could do it like Back to the Future, where they just cut him into the scenes where they're already in the
or like a Five Doctors thing with Tom Baker. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know that there are certain rules against it because of Crispin Glover in Back to the Future 2 and 3, which he's not actually in. So they had a prosthetic face made and put it on another actor and hung him upside down in 2 and 3, and people thought that it was Crispin Glover. So, and yes, Lon says he's promoting a couple of other flicks, but Lon, you might remember jokes. That was a joke about Andrew Garfield giving every interview about promoting other movies has been somebody's asked him, "Are you in Spider-Man No Way Home?" So, Spider-Man. It's interesting because I was suspecting that he was going to go tumbling throughout the multiverse instead of the other
multiverse is tumbling onto him.
Yeah, I think that's much more the theme.
And I was surprised, obviously Doc Ock and Green Goblin that we'd sort of been prepared for. I was surprised to see Sandman and the Lizard show up in that trailer.
And more importantly, Electro, Jamie Foxx, has been upgraded to actually look like Electro. And I thought that was awesome. But it is interesting because I do think that, like, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange looks. This is another film where they're going to say, "No, that's really Mephisto." So yeah.
He looks too well shaven, too well groomed.
He looks well groomed, and conversely, the wig is not good. And so, it's just kind of. But I've seen some complaints that I realized they're not making Spider-Man movies; they're making Marvel team-up movies, and so people want just which I'm okay with because I have 4.5 decent Spider-Man movies before. I'm not really a fan of Spider-Man 3, but some of it was good. So, and maybe if you take that some of it and add 2 or 3 minutes from Venom, and hopefully we'll have 5 good minutes out of Morbius, and that can make 5 good. That we're seeing that, but it's just it is just interesting to go like, we're never going to see that solo Spider-Man film.
What do you think about MJ falling off a high thing again? I mean,
the lesson here is absolutely do not fall in love with Peter Parker because you are destined to fall off a high. Like, don't go web swinging with him. Peter, what's wrong with a nice walk through the park? Hold her hand on the ground.
Well, I love the shot. There's a shot where they're swinging together. She's going, and her hair is all in his face.
Yeah. And does it bum anyone else that we're denied an MCU version of these returning spider villains? And I'd say my response is it doesn't mean we're denied them. Like, Tom Holland is not prepared for someone like me who's remembered every press snippet that has been said about his career here. And he's just like, this is the end of the trilogy. And everybody's going, oh my God, Tom Holland's leaving it. But Kevin Feige has said that Spider-Man is 3 trilogies. It's the high school student. You wait a few years. Then it's the college student. And then you show, so you've got 3 distinct eras in Peter Parker's life, which is how it's been in the comics, right?
Maybe they'll do it like The Crown. And we'll get 3 different actors.
And if we do, we do. If Matt Smith shows up as Peter Parker as an adult, okay. No, because he's going to be a villain in Morbius. So that's,
Yeah.
But, I mean, just because the thing is, we've seen 2 Green Goblins. We've seen 2 Harry Osborns become Green Goblin. We've seen 2 Norman Osborns. And if there'd been Amazing Spider-Man 3, you would have seen that Norman Osborn become the Green Goblin as well. We've already seen, technically, we've kind of seen the MCU version of Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse, and it's Catherine Hahn. We've just seen the animated version. So,
speaking of which, I'm going to be very disappointed if in the post-credit scenes for this movie, or even in the pre-credit scenes for this movie, we don't get an introduction to Miles Morales. I think it's time.
Oh, I would agree with you that needs to be Miles needs to go in. I mean, well, they have already Donald Glover played his uncle in the first Spider-Man movie, or in Spider-Man Homecoming
by name, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's been, and it's interesting. Michael Keaton was on Jimmy Kimmel this week and they said, are you doing anything for the MCU? And he goes, yeah, I'm filming some Vulture stuff this week. And it was like so casual.
The dude is Batman. Being Vulture doesn't faze him at all.
Well, and I think the other thing this trailer does, which has been established, is that Tom Holland clearly does not look like the other 2 actors that played Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. And so the multiverse, every actor, every version looks different. Just, so few people paid attention after the DC fandom when the Flash trailer came out with Michael Keaton, and everybody was paying attention to Robert Pattinson as the Batman. I'm like, no, the Michael Keaton one you really want to see, it appeared too, and so you can have those two to look for, and then you can have Ben Affleck in there on the WB's version of the CW. Sorry, why would I say the WB? The CW's version, Crisis on Infinite Earths, had established that the guy on the main Earth that looks like the Atom, that is the Atom, looks like Superman on another Earth, and he looks like Tom Welling on another Earth, and so we can see all kinds of things. So again, I will circle back to Lon's question. I don't think we're not going to see a Doc Ock. I don't, that we can't see our own version of it. Although, as he points out, they want to have their own spider characters, and that is true. But look, so how much longer do you think it is before Disney buys Sony studio outright? All that. So they're going to get Spider-Man back 100%.
I will say in the next 8 years.
8 years. So yeah,
I'll take the under on that. I'll take the under on that.
Okay.
We'll talk again in 8 years.
You're a bigger risk taker than I am, Sal.
Well, Disney. I didn't think Disney was going to buy 20th Century Fox, and that once they did that, I said, well, they've got no reason not to just keep buying things until the government says stop.
Well, and I said the story that everybody missed in that, I know it's it's the behind the scenes stuff, is that the reason Disney was able to buy Fox was because the Fox empire did not see a way to make money on making movies anymore. If they thought there was money to be made, they'd have kept it. So I mean, and we're seeing that. That's the other big story of the week. Disney's streaming is cheap. Once you've gotten every child to scream at their parents and subscribe to Disney Plus, and there are no more children to subscribe, what do you can't grow. So they're
make more children.
Make more children.
Well, then, for God's sake, turn off Disney Plus. It's not.
Disney just needs to open a different division for
there you go.
Make more children project.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, we're not talking about cloning either.
No, I'm not. No.
Are we back to Lon's movie?
But I might be talking about a streaming service. So anyway,
okay.
But yeah, that's the thing. Everything is buckled down to streaming services, and that changed. We're just watching this the whole model shifting, and who knows?
And bringing it back to Bond, we don't know what's going to happen if Amazon actually ends up buying MGM. That sale's been kind of stalled for a while, but that could have a big effect on whether we see some of these offshoot Bond properties happen.
Because I'd say who has more control. I mean, when an actual Bond villain buys Bond, you're going to see the streaming services. And for all the problems I have with all these conglomerates, Jeff Bezos is legitimately a nerd. I mean, that he believes in genre entertainment, and he's a Bond fan, even if he doesn't understand his own position in that universe.
And Elon Musk is more of a Bond villain, I think. And I think he likes that role. I mean, he has done a lot of social media. He's posed with a cat. Oh, good piece of trivia. After 5 viewings, this is the only appearance of Blofeld in any filmed entertainment where there is not a white cat. There are cats in this movie. There are Q's hairless cats, but there's no white cat.
Wow.
Or is that a signal that Q is actually Blofeld all along?
But it would just be nice if they would have had the cat in the prison cell with Blofeld. He was like, well, they let me have my cat.
All right.
Or if the cat had the bionic eye.
Okay, and we're over an hour, so I appreciate that. Lon has a trivia question. Can you answer this? Sal, have you seen Steve Martin's Bond parody on SNL? And can you name the fake movie?
I bet I saw it, and I can't remember the name of the movie.
Lon, I'm going to guess.
But I think it's a takeoff on Octopussy, if I recall.
I remember because there was the villain was Sting was the musical guest. The villain was named Goldsting, and I believe that it was called Scotsman's Holiday, but I'm not sure. So, Lon, do you have the answer? Because now we're dying to know.
But now Lon's giving me something to do.
I thought a
after this is
Scotsman
over.
holiday was made with rum and scotch and cherry sauce.
That's a Brett
What about a
Schneider
French
Scotsman.
exit?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm having a Vesper.
Oh, by the way, Lon doesn't actually know. He says, I think it's called Bullets Aren't Cheap, which may be
Okay.
true. I remember the gag was that, of course, Bond being Scottish is actually very penurious
Frugal.
when he's on his own budget. And so it's like
The name of the movie is Bullets Aren't Cheap.
You did find it.
And
Okay.
yeah,
What year was that?
2013, I think.
Okay.
That recent. Wow.
I would have seen it then. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. No, aired 87.
87.
Okay.
Oh, way back when. Yeah.
So I might not have seen that.
I just remember him playing like blackjack or so like a very low stakes game when it's on his own, like playing the penny slots.
Agent James Bond, Steve Martin, takes a holiday on his own dime. When expenses aren't covered, Bond is a total cheapskate, even when gambling against the evil Gold Sting.
Yep, I remembered it. Okay.
Now I'm going to have to look it up.
Really yeah. So, all right, Sal, I want to say thank you for joining us tonight and talking James Bond, and James Bond will return, so Sal Pizarro should too.
And but, I can talk about other things, so I'm happy to come back whenever you guys want me to.
You can.
Sooner than James Bond returns, Sal Pizarro will. So
we should do a show which is just mixology for comic book fans.
Okay.
That would be a very interesting show. I think we have to produce that a little more. And it's not.
Totally.
I think that would be interesting.
I think that gets done on site somewhere.
That's CineQuest is coming back in March for an in-person event. So they say.
Oh, really?
It's what I've heard. I've seen some, not from them.
I hope they're not looking. And say, I have seen a couple of entries. Yeah. And so I know they're planning it. I just don't know if it's going to happen. But honestly, it's not to be live disappointing anybody. I don't know that I can return to San Jose for CineQuest. It's easy to say when I lived there and be there for 2 weeks. I don't know that I could do 2 weeks, there unless Sal, you have a basement, right?
I've got a basement, and we have hotels here.
Yeah, there are hotels.
I'm sorry, it would be a Scotsman's holiday for me. The name is Macaw, Derek Macaw, and on my own dime, because Fanboy Planet's dime is my dime is what goes into Fanboy Planet. So the Fanboy Planet I know can't afford.
What about those sweet dimes that come from Amazon?
Sweet Bezos money.
That sweet Bezos money. He's got it all, baby. That's the truth. So thank you for reminding that. If there's anything in the James Bond catalog that you wish to purchase through an Amazon link, we are.
Oh. Did you guys see that they're reissuing the attaché case?
Yes.
I meant to ask you because you complained that there was no gun camera.
They replaced the gun with a camera. It had a version of the gun from Russia with Love originally, and they've gotten rid of all the guns in there and the knife. There's gold coins, which I guess you can hit somebody with. And there's the decoders, which I love the decoder because it had a shift for the decryption code, and there's the passport wallet that I'm sure has a little red gel in the corner that when you put the James Bond calling cards in there, the 007 disappears until you pull it out, and then it shows 007.
So let me ask you an honest question.
Yes,
I saw you post about this. And so you complain about the replacements, which I'm with you. I'm like, if you're gonna, because first of all, what kid is going to afford that kit and be led astray?
Yeah.
by like into a life of violence and crime. But what surprised me about that post is I've been in the Brett Cave. If I show the full pit here, people can see many things behind Rick in the Brett Cave. Of all
Gee,
these
maybe
things,
5% there.
that's not even 5%, Sal, because there's an ancillary. There's a Brett garage. I've been out there. I know there's a Brett storage space somewhere.
There's
Which,
a Brett Tough Shed too.
oh, that's right. I forgot. I haven't been there since you installed the Brett Tough Shed. But knowing that, and that you are both a gentleman of leisure and not to call you up, but you've got some spending money. You know, why have you not gone back and gotten the original kit?
I've never found one intact. They're really hard to come by. Most collectors aren't giving theirs up. The only ones you can find typically are broken, either in the case, in the closures, or they're shattered inside, and they're usually missing parts. And so, if you're going to do that, typically people who get them nowadays buy multiples of these broken kits, and then complete one out of all that, and then they sell off their broken bits to somebody else. Or their non-broken bits to somebody else. So it's really hard. It's really difficult to do that. And I had one as a kid. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Okay, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I'd be really hard. Whatever I was able to get right now, I'd be eventually unsatisfied with.
Yeah, no, that's very. I'm just from the collector's point of view, as maybe people who follow the Instagram account, is I've unpacked some of my old collectibles that haven't been on display in 30 or so years because I haven't had a place to put them. One, the shape is terrible. You're right, and a lot of it is, for me as a collector, it is sentimental. So it's like I wouldn't replace this beat up book because, well, I know where I got it and I know what it meant at the time. So I was just curious because Bond fandom was something I came to late, so I certainly was too young to be aware of any of the toys. But
I'll give you another example. Like before the show, and I'm not going to. This is an unpaid advertisement. I was in Portland at Billy Galaxy, and
right.
And they had some amazing toys there, and I was very tempted that every time I found one, they had 5 beautiful Major Matt Masons. I don't have any. I had those as a kid. They eventually got broken and thrown away. But every one of them, the thing about Major Matt Mason, he was a posable rubber doll spaceman with a helmet. But if he was well loved, the wire inside his arms would eventually break. And so he'd just flap around, and they were all in that state. So,
I mean, I have a really broken Major Matt Mason. I have the case, that collector's case that they were shoddily made toys. Let's be honest.
They were inexpensive too.
Yeah, I found my Callisto, and
nice.
I have the, I don't know what his name was, but the one whose suit
Scorpio.
No, not Scorpio. Was an alien.
Oh, you're talking about he's the black astronaut in red?
No, he's not. I don't have one in black. There might have been.
Okay.
I'll have to find the Big Little book, as I was, as I know where now all my Big Little books are. There's a Major Matt Mason Big Little book, and I will see if they name those. But anyway, let's get back onto we were going to leave. Yeah.
We're this close.
So thank you. I know. Well, then Rick had to talk about toys.
No,
who made me talk.
It's always my favorite part.
That's your favorite part, talking about toys?
It is.
Not being able to end.
I don't have, I have some collectibles here, superhero stuff, a lot of action figures from over the past 30 years. Bond stuff is mostly books. I've got some posters and things like that. But I love going into the Brett Cave. It's been far too long since I've been there, and I love exploring in there when I can. So,
all right.
See, that's like a flux capacitor.
This is gigawatt.
It's a gigawatt, a
This
transformer.
is the transformer they just did, which mashes up Transformers and Back to the Future.
Oh,
It
you got that.
transforms into a the aluminum part.
So we'll have Sal back on, in which we just show our cool toys, and just say, can you have that? Yeah. So anyway, if you can find a James Bond attaché case on Amazon, you can purchase through, and we would get a small bounty from that. As well, of course, again, if you have any questions, comments, compliments, commentary, criticism, write into editor@fanboyplanet.com. Follow us on Facebook, and thank you to those who have watched and joined us through this live podcast, which will still be up on Facebook and up on the YouTube channel, and then later this week up on Fanboy Planet itself. So, thank you for tuning in. I'm Derek McCaw, editor-in-chief of fanboyplanet.com.
I'm Rick Brett Snyder.
And I'm Sal Pizarro.
That's right. Can we do this all in unison? Ready? Because it's live. Reminding you to use your powers for good. It's
like swimming in molasses.